Quinnipiac men's lacrosse team competed in an overtime thriller with its undefeated conference record on the line. How did it finish?
And a tough weekend for the Quinnipiac softball team.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into another edition of Sports Paws. I'm very happy to be joined alongside my man, Cullen Ronan, making his debut on the sports desk. He's dabbled in entertainment, but he's here now joining us finally.
Thanks, Josh. You know, I'm beyond happy to be here today, but we do have a ton to get to, so why don't you get us started here?
Oh, I'm honored. Well, it was an overtime thriller that totaled a combined 19 goals between Quinnipiac and Monmouth. How would it end? Let's have a look. Here we go. We'll start Quinnipiac versus Monmouth. The winner, Bobcats, if they won, would clinch the #1 seed in the upcoming MAC tournament. We'll start in the second quarter right here. A little back and forth, a little tic-tac action. Second quarter, however, we'll stay in that second quarter. Can't forget about the goalkeepers. Joe Secaucus for Quinnipiac puts it, saves it for Quinnipiac. Then fourth quarter, Mike Fletcher will score his 23rd goal of the season, tie the game up at 8 apiece. But that is, nothing taken away from that, but what a goal compared to what is about to come. Foster Cuomo, in, out, back, forth. Defender goes down. What does he do? He scores. What a goal right there. Quinnipiac would take a 9-8 lead. It kept building up. Double overtime. Here we go. Who's going to score? Who's going to get the win? Ryan Corcoran for Quinnipiac puts it past the goal. There he does. Lead him down the field. Stick, raise, high stepping down. Let him know that you just clinched the first seed in the MAC tournament with your 10-9 victory. Big things for this men's lacrosse team and for Quinnipiac.
You're right about that, Josh. Following their thrilling 10-9 double OT victory, Quinnipiac still finds itself atop the MAC men's conference standings with a perfect 5-0 in conference record. Trailing behind is Detroit Mercy with a 5-1 record and a 2-game gap separating Canisius and Monmouth. The standings are rounded out by Manhattan and Siena, who remain winless in in-conference play.
Quinnipiac senior faceoff specialist Will Vitelli earns his 3rd MAC Defensive Player of the Week award after winning 18 of 22 faceoffs. Vitelli cleanly won 8 of 18 faceoffs, which resulted in 8 ground balls, which led the team. Now we're joined by men's lacrosse analyst Sean Raggio. Sean, let's get down to brass tacks. We always hear their names, but how important is the top attacking line of Fletcher, Cuomo, and Tomczyk to this team?
They're extremely important, and they're bringing all the offense, most of the offense for this team. They combined for 72 goals on the season. That's good for almost half the goals that the Bobcats have scored. They keep finding ways to score, and they have combined for over 100 points on the year. And if you have your big 3 guys doing that, then it makes it a lot easier for the guys in the back and the guys in the midfield to play their game and not have to force and attack forward on every single possession.
And how big has Joe Secaucus, known by his teammates as Zucchini, been since taking over the starting role for the Bobcats?
He's been huge, and I've been thinking about, when I hear Joe Secaucus, I think clutch, and he's exemplified that. He's got a winning record this year. He's 7-3 on the season. He's got more saves than he has goals against. That's 94 saves to 82 goals against. And in that double OT win against Monmouth, he had 2 saves in overtime. And without that clutch gene, the Bobcats would not have won that game.
All right, Sean, who would you say has flown under the radar for the Bobcats this year?
All right, I got 2 names in mind. The first one, Brian Feldman. You heard a lot about him at the beginning of the season. He scored his 100th goal of his career. But since then, who have you heard about? Jake Tomczyk, Foster Cuomo, and Mike Fletcher. Feldman has 23 goals on the year, and while he is, I'm pretty sure, 4th on the team in points, it's just, you don't hear a lot about him. And as well, Matt Frost has been having a great year under the radar. He's setting a career high for himself in goals with 15 and points with 20. And even head coach Eric Feketa had something to say about him after senior day against Canisius. He said to me in the post-game press conference, and he was basically saying how big of an impact that Frost has had, how excuse me, and how he's got a great shot and how physical of a player he is. And these games are picking up in physicality, and that's something the Bobcats have been needing.
Now looking ahead, Sean, what do these Bobcats need to do to win the MAC tournament?
They need to shore up their defense. They've had a couple games late where they've let their defense slide. The game against Canisius on Senior Day, they gave up several goals in the fourth quarter, and while they had a big enough lead, they scored a season-high 19 goals on the season. You don't want that to happen late in the game. You want to keep the pressure up, and you want to keep forcing. You want to keep fighting. You don't want to give it and just play in your own zone and allow the other team to get goals. And just as I said, as I was alluding to there, just keep your foot on the gas. Keep attacking. Just keep attacking. If you play in your own end, it doesn't matter how good of a defensive team you are, it's not going to go well for you.
Now, Sean, if this team doesn't win a game in the MAC tournament, can you still consider the season a success?
Absolutely. They didn't even qualify for the tournament last semester. Last season. They clinched the #1 seed this season, and they did it by beating Monmouth, the previous MAC champions. They went from 1-5 in the MAC to so far 5-0 with a chance of having a perfect MAC season. That and the success of freshman Jake Tomczyk and the rest of the team, I don't think that this could be a disappointing season at all. If anything, next season is where you determine whether or not this season or that season would be disappointment or not.
Well, that's all we got for you, Sean. Thanks for stopping in.
Thanks for having me, guys.
And jumping to men's baseball, Quinnipiac made the trip to Smithfield, Rhode Island to face the Bryant Bulldogs last week. In a high-scoring game that included 13 pitchers combined for both squads, Quinnipiac fell 9-8. Despite the loss, Bobcats first baseman Ben Gibson had himself a day, going 3 for 5 with a home run and 2 RBIs. However, his output wasn't enough to overshadow Bryant's offense, which put up 15 hits en route to the victory.
Staying on the diamond, Colin, we go to Game 1 versus Quinnipiac versus Canisius. Quinnipiac's usual cast of characters showed up to beat Canisius to help it beat Canisius 9-5 in the first of 3 games that the two teams would play. Both Liam Scarfiello and Ben Gibson recorded 2 RBIs, and Taylor Luciani pitched 6 innings, allowing just 6 hits and 2 earned runs. Saturday just happened to be Quinnipiac's day because in the second game of this doubleheader, it held Canisius scoreless, winning the second tilt 3-0. Quinnipiac pitcher Brandon Schleikes pitched all 7 innings for the Bobcats, surrendering only 4 hits and 2 walks. Quinnipiac swept Canisius on Saturday, totaling 12 runs while giving up only 5. However, Sunday was a different story, and I know you'll take that one.
And in the third and final game, wrapping up the weekend series, Quinnipiac didn't fare as well as it had in the 2 games prior, falling 8-5 to the Golden Griffins. Quinnipiac starter Tyler Poulin had a rough day on the mound, giving up 7 runs in just 4 innings of work. Canisius' offense exploded in the final game of the series, tallying 8 runs on 11 hits. Junior third baseman Ryan Steckel added 4 RBIs in his 4 at-bats. The Bobcats remain in first place in the MAC and are set to face the Hartford Hawks at home on Tuesday. Coming up, softball faced a tough weekend against Siena and Monmouth.
And the man with all the answers, Shane Dennehy, the Crosby reporter, is here to enlighten us with his knowledge and insight.
All this and much more when we come back. You don't want to miss it.
Whether you're on the quad,
in your room,
or heading to class,
tune in to Q30 News
for stories by student journalists you can trust.
We are covering the latest here on campus and in surrounding areas.
Get the news you need to know every Wednesday night.
Coming up on #that, we talk about some fun events around Quinnipiac's campus.
And we talk about some weird news that's been discussed around Twitter.
All that and more, we are your source for Quinnipiac's entertainment news.
Sandwich News, we will determine what makes a good sandwich and a bad sandwich. First, the standard sandwich. Uninspired and frankly, a little gross. But we have here a Ray and Mike sandwich, the Cadillac of sandwiches. And if you want one, well,
come on down to Ray and Mike's at 3030 Whitney Ave, Hamden, Connecticut. Open every day from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. QCash is accepted.
now that's a sandwich.
Sports Paws is brought to you by Custom Cakes by Steve. If you can dream it, we can bake it.
Welcome back to Sports Paws. Colin, we usually share the booth together, but tonight it's a different animal. How do you think it's going so far?
Well, you know what, Josh? I am having a great time besides you tonight, but I'm just dying to talk a little softball here.
Well, then you're in luck. In what was an up and down couple of games for Quinnipiac, ended up splitting a two-game series with Holy Cross. Quinnipiac ace Casey Herzog dominated the first game as it won 9-1. The game went only 5 innings before the 8-run mercy rule went into effect. However, the second game was much different. Quinnipiac's defense slipped and it fell to Holy Cross 11-8, allowing 3 errors and 15 hits.
So now we're going to take it away. Game 2 wasn't nearly as favorable for the Bobcats as Siena rallied in the second meeting of the doubleheader, taking a 5-0 victory. Siena starter Maddie McMahon tossed an absolute gem, going the full 7 innings, allowing no runs and tallying 5 strikeouts. Despite Bridget Douglas going 3 for 3 with a double, the Bobcats couldn't spark any offense, a trend that seemed to follow them through the rest of the weekend.
Game 2 of the Bobcats series against the Hawks was a little bit like the first. Quinnipiac struggled in all facets of the game. Mike Dalton has the story.
After splitting the doubleheader with Siena the day before, the Bobcats found themselves back at home to take on the .1 team in the MAC, Monmouth University.
They have, a strong defense behind Riley. Riley's been having an outstanding year in the conference. Her ERA is, 0.5, 0.56. And offensively, they do some dynamic things, from power to the short game. So, they found our spots on defense. We try to play to their weaknesses, and they took advantage of some of those gaps.
Casey Herzog pitched a scoreless first inning. However, she would give up at least 1 run in 3 of the next 4 innings. Herzog was pulled after 5 innings and replaced by Abby Long. This was the first time Herzog was pulled from a game she started since March 31st.
They could hit unconventional pitches, pitches that were in close to the dirt, they were still taking pretty long, and then we just need to be more aggressive outfielding and fielding wise and just making every single play. They're not a team that we can let up on at all.
Quinnipiac started to get its bats going in the second game, but it was too little, too late, as Monmouth walked off the field with 2 more wins.
With the regular season coming to a close in just 2 weeks, every game will count for the Bobcats. However, they will have a week's worth of rest before they take on their next opponent, the Fairfield Stags, right here in Hamden. Reporting from the QU softball field, I'm Mike Dalton, Q30 Sports.
Quinnipiac currently finds itself in the middle of the conference standings with a 7-7 record. Though Quinnipiac currently has more wins than the 3 teams who are above them, its winning percentage is just a little lower. Monmouth currently sits atop the standings at 11 wins to just 1 conference loss.
Transitioning from the diamond to the field, it's time to talk a little women's lacrosse. It's been a bit of a rough season for the Bobcats, and Wednesday's game against Siena was no different. Siena's Alexis Deacon scored the game's first 5 goals. Siena jumped out to her 7-0 lead. Quinnipiac tried to fight back but fell short, losing the contest 13-9.
Quinnipiac would then turn their attention to the Purple Eagles of Niagara, and unfortunately the result was a little bit more of the same for the women's lax team. Niagara's 15 goals were too much for Quinnipiac to overcome, marking their 6th straight loss and falling to 1-7 in the MAC. For Niagara, however, they continue to have a strong MAC presence and move to 5-2 in in-conference play.
And now we take a look at the MAC women's lacrosse standings before the playoff tournament gets underway. 5 of the 6 playoff spots have been clinched as Fairfield, Marist, Canisius, Niagara, and Monmouth are set for a playoff berth. Quinnipiac finds themselves at the bottom of the standings with only 1 win in conference play and a 5-11 overall record.
After making the MAC playoffs last year, hopes were high for the 2018 women's lacrosse teams. However, the squad currently finds themselves out of the playoff hunt and in last place in the MAC with a 1-7 in-conference record. So we took to Twitter to ask sports fans whether or not they believe the season was a bust. And in overwhelming fashion, 89% of voters believe the 2018 season was a disappointment, as opposed to only 11% who didn't.
We've teased it all show, but now I'm very happy to bring on my man, Shane Dennehy, to give us more insight into the Quinnipiac lacrosse team. Shane, let's get right into it. 89% people who voted on Q30's poll asking whether or not the season was a disappointment said that it was. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, Josh and Colin, thank you for having me. Colin, really happy to be on here for your first time on Sports Paws, but I definitely have to agree with the poll. 89% saying yes, that it was a disappointment. It couldn't be anything other than a disappointment. I mean, to go last year, making the MAC tournament for the first time in program history since joining it a few years ago, but just there was no more excuses. Last year, you know, it was an incredible season, make it at 3-5, just sneak into the playoffs. They were playing at Yale, but this season they opened a new, beautiful facility, and they just couldn't get the job done. They had a bunch of solid players step up, like Ashley Babinski really emerged in her sophomore year, Allison Kuhn, Kira Kelly, but ultimately their goaltending really let them down, and they were unable to repeat the feat that they had last year of going back to the MAC tournament again.
Now, Shane, who do you believe is the person most responsible for this down year?
Yeah, I touched on it just there. You got to look at Kyle Larkin in that. I mean, just goaltending is so important in lacrosse. You got to give your team some possessions, and I was talking to head coach Tanya Kotowitz after the Iona game when Quinnipiac was trailing 5-0 at halftime. She switched to sophomore Allie Kelsey in net, and she said, you know what, I asked her why she made the switch, and she's like, I had to make that switch because I believed Allie Kelsey could give our team more possession, and that's what Kyle Larkin was unable to do this season. She was unable to make the saves that her team needed. She was fifth in the MAC, she was eighth in the MAC in saves per game, which is just unacceptable. There's only 9 teams, and being eighth, you're just not going to give your team the offensive possessions that they need down the stretch, and that's really what it came down to. She wasn't able to get the stops that she really needed to and give Quinnipiac the team some offensive possessions.
All right, now, Shane, who is the player to watch for next year?
Honestly, I really struggle with this. Kira Kelly, who's graduating as a senior defenseman, has been absolutely just outstanding, arguably the best player in program history easily. So I think sophomore defender Haley Everding is really the player to watch on the back line. She made the All-MAC rookie team last season, and she has some really big shoes to fill on the back line with Kira Kelly. Everding was 4th on the team in ground balls with 22, 2nd on the team in caused turnovers with 20. Kira Kelly had 48 more ground balls than her, and she also had 40 more caused turnovers. So Haley Everding has some serious work to do, both in the leadership category and her skill on the field if she wants to step up on Quinnipiac's back line and help them improve and hopefully make the MAC tournament again next year.
And Shane, this is the last one from us here at the desk, but what is the future of this program going forward?
Honestly, Colin, I think this program can go very far. Obviously, like I said, they got a brand new facility. They have a beautiful turf that they can finally play on, call a place their own home. And I just think you saw so many young players emerge this season. Like you saw Brianna Fitzgerald, the sophomore, really step up a lot as the season went on. And then Tanya Kotowitz, I think she's done a fantastic job of recruiting. You really saw a lot of the freshmen that she recruited this year in her first recruiting class really coming in and making that big impact, like Avery Drew and Maya Fagenbaum really coming in, having that big impact. Ashley Babinski really stepped up in his sophomore year, so hopefully she can step up again next season and really improve her game. Allison Kuhn, her final year as a senior. Hopefully Quinnipiac can get back into the MAC tournament.
Great stuff, Shane. Well, we're 2 blocks down with 1 more to go. When we come back, catch you up on Quinnipiac's golf and tennis teams.
And stay tuned for my first ever edition of Top 5 Plays.
Can't wait for that. All that in just 2 minutes. Don't go anywhere.
Hello, and tonight on Sandwich News, we will determine what makes a good sandwich and a bad sandwich. First, the standard sandwich. Uninspired, and frankly, a little gross. But we have here a Ray and Mike sandwich, the Cadillac of sandwiches. And if you want one, well,
come on down to Ray and Mike's at 3030 Whitney Ave, Hamden, Connecticut. Open every day from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Q-Cash is accepted.
now that's a sandwich.
Bobcat Breakdown presented by the Quinnipiac Bobcats Sports Network.
We are your source for debate.
Did they make the playoffs last year, Tom Jenkins?
When it clicks, it clicks.
We dissect Quinnipiac athletics on a scale you've never seen before.
With Tobia, it almost looks like she's reaching a little bit.
Plus, we bring in the biggest names surrounding college sports.
We are live here at the Times Union Center with Jay Billis.
And of course, some comedy.
But you can only have so much arena food.
I think you're crazy.
Bobcat Breakdown.
Tuesdays at 9:30.
This is Sports Paws.
Are you concerned with the 0-2 start for this team?
Right here, top of the circle, again, rips it past the Jasper's goalie.
What will breaking the record mean for the program himself? I mean, 138 wins.
There's the tough shot. What a nice play by Mikey Dixon.
He's good in transition. Just a really dynamic scorer he can create for himself.
And now, Emma, it's time for the top 5 plays of the week.
Sports Paws is brought to you by Custom Cakes by Steve. If you can dream it, we can bake it. Welcome back to Sports Paws. Before we wrap up the show, we have updates from the track and from the court.
And we sure do, Josh. You can't forget about the links either. Now, the Quinnipiac golf team made its way to Lake Buena Vista, Florida in a bid for its third MAC tournament championship in as many years. Despite shooting its best round on the final day of the 3-day tournament, the Bobcats would finish as runner-up 12 strokes behind your 2018 MAC tournament champions, the Albany Great Danes. Quinnipiac's second-place finish means they do not clinch a berth into the NCAA tournament, marking the first time they haven't done so in the last 3 seasons. The Bobcats look to turn their hopes around in 2019, and luckily for them, 4 of their top 5 golfers will be returning next season.
Quinnipiac women's tennis team fought a close one on Friday against Middlebury College. Middlebury edged out Quinnipiac to win 4-3 in Hamden. Matches Quinnipiac's final one before playing number 4 seeded Niagara in the MAC tournament, which will begin on April 28th in New Jersey. Quinnipiac has yet to lose in the MAC since joining the conference in 2013.
And after a disappointing 7-0 loss to Monmouth on Saturday, snapping the Quinnipiac men's tennis team's 4-game winning streak, the Bobcats look to turn their luck around in the MAC championship this Saturday, potentially getting another shot at redemption against Monmouth. Let's hear what some of the players and the coaches had to say on their loss after Saturday.
I think it'll be great to take a championship from them. They took one from us my sophomore year, and they already won 2 in a row. So
they've been strong, and they've been able to get the best of us. So it's more of a fact that we believe we can beat them. And I don't know if we were a little overpumped today to get at that opportunity, but we feel good about the season that we had.
Quinnipiac track and field traveled to Stony Brook, New York to compete in the Stony Brook Invitational. Junior Emily Dreiser placed first in the javelin, while Megan Scullin continued to move up Quinnipiac's all-time leaderboard. In the long jump, Quinnipiac's next contest is Sunday, April 29th, when it will compete in the Yale Springtime Invitational. And now the infamous top 5 plays. Cullen, you're the rookie here, so I'll take the first one. I'm the one who'll lead it off. I'll set the bar, which I know you will exceed. Let's get right to it. My favorite time. It's all men's lacrosse. Most exciting game. We're starting number 5 right here. Anthony Carcieri, who will thread the needle. Find Ryan Corcoran, who wide open gets the shot. Quinnipiac will be leading right now. We'll see more Corcoran later
And
on.
at play number 4 here, we have Foster Cuomo with his back to the net. Turns, quickly fires past goalie Noah Lowe, top shelf cheddar right there. And don't you worry, don't go anywhere, because Foster Cuomo will be making another appearance on the top 5 plays.
We need to remember the goalie, Joey Zakakis. What a save right here. Just 2 minutes left. It doesn't go to overtime. If he doesn't make this save, that's how we get here.
And who is it again? Foster Cuomo dancing around the Monmouth defenders, breaking ankles and slotting his shot past Noah Lowe once again. Now Cuomo had himself a day, Josh, finishing the game with 3 points and 2 goals and 1 assist.
Colin, that looks like you in formal the other night. In double overtime we go. Game on the line. I did this a little earlier. Doing it again. It's that good. Ryan Corcoran back of the net. That is how you seal it. That is how you put the team on your back. They will win 10-9. Team follows him down the field. High stepping, raising the stick. Because you know what? You're clinching first seed in the conference tournament. That's nothing to shake a stick at.
Enjoy that, big fella.
Leaving on a lighter note, the Quinnipiac Student Athlete Advisory Committee is holding its annual Bobcats Off-Broadway event right now in Burke Con. Q30's MJ Baird is there with more on this fundraiser.
Yes, Josh, thank you. Burke Concourt behind me beginning to fill up as student athletes from all 21 Quinnipiac men's and women's varsity programs are entering in for tonight's Bobcats Off-Broadway, essentially an athlete talent show held annually here in Burke Concourt. The two members who run this are two e-board members on the Student Athlete Advisory Committee. One, Elizabeth Cluse from the women's volleyball team. The other, Greg Tarka from Quinnipiac men's basketball. I'm fortunate enough to have Greg with me. So, Greg, if you could step in, just ask you a few questions. First off, great, thank you, Greg. First off, just this event held annually for student athletes. What does this mean to the students?
Oh, it's awesome. I mean, it shows everybody, it shows the student body that we're not just athletes. It gives us an opportunity to create a little bit, see what we can come up with. I mean, it's a pretty open floor. I mean, we give the athletic teams really not many guidelines. Keep it appropriate and put on a show. So it's an opportunity for us to show that we can thrive outside of our sports.
And I understand that this event is a fundraiser, so can you tell me about that?
It is, yeah. This is for Coach Quitko. He used to be a men's tennis coach here at Quinnipiac. He's suffering from Lewy body dementia as well as Parkinson's. So the money that we raise here tonight is really going towards him and to support him as a member of the Quinnipiac community.
And final question, not a lot of regular students who aren't athletes know what the Student Athlete Advisory Committee is. So you serve on the e-board for that. What is that council for?
Yeah, so our Student Athlete Advisory Committee is really just to connect. We're trying to connect mostly the student athletes to the coaches and to administration. We try to keep it easy, know all the rules coming through the MAC, stuff like that. But we also try and put on events like this. Try to reach out to the student body, support our athletes in a lot of different ways.
All right, Greg, thank you and good luck tonight.
Thank you, MJ, appreciate it.
Some of the events tonight, as Greg said, not a lot of guidelines, but women's hockey putting on the Yodeling Girl from Burke Concourt. Women's basketball with I Ripped My Pants. Not sure what that could be. Men's lacrosse putting on a spelling bee, and men's tennis, a bad joke contest. That should be pretty good coming from the tennis boys. Again, all money raised at this event goes to benefit Coach Quitko and his medical bills. Josh, Colin, that's all I have from Burke Concourt. Back to you.
Thanks, MJ. That's great stuff, as always. Before we wrap up, just want to give a little shout out to my man, Colin Rowan, share a radio show together, but now we're on TV on the sports desk. What was it like?
It was a great experience. I feel like the lights are a little brighter here for sports. There's a lot more pressure on you, but it was a great experience. Obviously joined by one of my best friends here. It was a fantastic way to bond further than we have already.
I love it. Gotta give a shout out, Chris Stacy, producer all year, moving up in the ranks like he should be. Just thankful to him and the whole production staff. Him, Randy, and all of them. They've just done a great job this year. So year's wrapping up. It's crazy to think that we'll be seniors next year.
Yeah,
sad,
wild.
Happy,
we're getting older. And of course, like you said, big thanks to Chris and the producer staff for making my first time an absolute breeze. Honestly, you guys are great. Put on a great show every week.
And I just want to say I didn't laugh on tonight's show, assuming that the close goes well. So Daisy said the over/under at 5 seconds. So that's it for tonight's episode of Sports Paws. I'm glad that I was able to get you out of the studio, Colin, onto the sports desk.
And it was a ton of fun, Josh, and I hope that next year's producers let us do it again.
Oh, I didn't laugh, so they should. I'm glad we were able to do it. For all of our coverage, you can follow us on Twitter at Q30 Television and visit our website at Q30TV.com. For Colin Ronan, all of our producers, and everyone behind the scenes, I'm Josh Silverman. Thanks for tuning in.